Ladies and gentlemen, let me start with that will shake you. Why is the most powerful nation in the world, the United States of America, so afraid of India? Now, I'm not talking about fear in the way of weakness. I'm talking about a deeper kind of fear. The kind that comes when you realize somebody else is rising, someone else is stepping into a strength that can no longer be ignored. America fears India's potential, not its present. The rise of India's young, educated, and ambitious population signals a future global power that can no longer be ignored. India refuses to be controlled. Unlike in the past, India is asserting its independence in global politics, economy, and military strength, challenging America's dominance. Thriving, not just surviving. America was never concerned when India struggled, but India's transformation into a thriving nation with global influence is what causes fear. Indian minds are leading the world. From Silicon Valley to Wall Street, Indian talent is shaping innovation, science, and technology at the highest levels. Cultural influence is power. India's traditions, yoga, Ayurveda philosophy, are gaining global respect, showing a unique balance between tradition and progress. India is becoming the first India America. America's fear reflects the breaking of its monopoly on global leadership as India emerges as a distinct and unstoppable force. America fears India's potential, not its present. When you look at the world stage today, it's clear that America still stands as a dominant power, both militarily and economically. India, by comparison, is still developing in many areas. It has challenges in poverty, infrastructure, and inequality. But here's the truth. Fear isn't about what you see right now. It's about what you know is coming. And America sees something on the horizon that makes them uneasy. It sees a nation of over 1.4 billion people, most of them young, most of them ambitious, most of them hungry for opportunity. That kind of demographic power isn't just a statistic. It's the future workforce, the future innovators, the future leaders of technology, science, medicine, and politics. America knows that numbers alone don't make a nation great, but when those numbers are paired with education, technology, and determination, they create momentum that cannot be stopped. India's present challenges don't scare America, because those struggles are temporary. What unsettles them is that India is no longer defined by those struggles. It's defined by its rise, by the breakthroughs it's making in space exploration, in digital infrastructure, in renewable energy, and in artificial intelligence. Think about it. A country once dismissed as developing is now putting satellites into orbit at lower cost than the West, building digital payment systems more advanced than anything in America, and creating homegrown industries that compete globally. That is not the image of a nation standing still. That is the image of a nation accelerating. America is afraid because it sees that acceleration and knows that once it reaches a certain point, there's no slowing it down. What's even more important is that India's growth isn't just economic or technological, it's cultural and psychological. A generation of Indians is growing up with confidence, not inferiority. They are not looking to the West for validation. They are creating their own identity and bringing it to the world unapologetically. This shift in mindset is powerful. It means that India's rise will not be a copy of America's path. It will be unique, authentic, and deeply rooted in its own history. For America, that is a different kind of fear, because you cannot compete with authenticity. You cannot duplicate it. You cannot own it. India refuses to be controlled, and that's one of the biggest reasons America feels uneasy when it looks east. For decades, the global order has been built around one principle: America decides and others follow. Countries often aligned with American interests because they felt they had no choice. But India is breaking that mold. India is standing on the global stage and saying, we will choose our own path, and we will not be anyone's pawn. That boldness changes everything, because true power isn't your military strength or economic size. It's about the courage to act independently when pressured. America is used to nations bending, adjusting, or even compromising under its influence. But India has shown time and again that it will not be dictated to, whether it's in matters of foreign policy, defense deals, or energy decisions. That kind of independence isn't just rare, it's threatening to a power that has long enjoyed control over the narrative. Look at how India positions itself globally. It doesn't blindly align with the West, nor does it completely surrender to the East. It walks its own line, maintaining relationships with multiple powers without bowing to any. That frustrates America because it can't box India in, can't categorize it as an ally it fully controls or an enemy it can openly oppose. India buys oil from where it wants, builds trade where it chooses, and signs defense agreements that serve its own security, not someone else's agenda. That unpredictability, that insistence on sovereignty, creates discomfort in a system where America has always preferred to hold the reins. This refusal to be controlled is also cultural. India carries the weight of thousands of years of civilization, a history that has faced foreign invasions, colonization, and exploitation. That memory fuels today's determination never to be subjugated again. Every policy, every global move India makes comes with a silent message. We will not trade our independence for convenience. That attitude is what gives India strength, because it is not chasing validation or approval. It is chasing self-reliance and dignity. America's fear here is just about losing influence over India. It's about the ripple effect. When one major nation stands up and says, we choose our own way, others notice. Others get inspired. Others start questioning why they are letting themselves be controlled. India's refusal, therefore, is not just defiance, it is leadership. And in a world where leadership often means domination, India has proven that leadership can mean freedom, sovereignty, and the power to decide your own destiny. That is the kind of power that makes America uncomfortable, because you cannot control the uncontrollable. Thriving, not just surviving. That is the real shift as America unsubtle when it looks at India. For decades, the world saw India through the lens of struggle, a developing country with poverty, infrastructure challenges, and a population that seemed more like a burden than a blessing. America and much of the West was comfortable with that picture because a struggling India was not a threat. It was simply another country trying to catch up. But now the story is different. India is not merely surviving anymore. It is rising, building, innovating, and showing the world that its identity is no longer defined by hardship, but by progress. That transformation is what sparks fear, because survival does not challenge power, but thriving does. Think about what thriving looks like in India today. It looks like an economy that is one of the fastest growing in the world, creating opportunities not only its own people, but influencing global markets. It looks like a digital revolution where millions of people are connected through one of the most advanced digital payment systems, while many developed nations are still trying to catch up. It looks like a space program that launches missions at a fraction of the cost of Western countries, proving that efficiency and innovation do not require endless money, but vision and ingenuity. These are not signs of a nation clinging to survival. They are signs of a nation breaking barriers and defining its own future. America's discomfort comes from the fact that India is thriving without following the traditional Western blueprint. The assumption used to be that progress had to follow a certain model: Western aid, Western technology, Western systems. But India is showing that it can build solutions its own way, solutions that are faster, cheaper, and sometimes better. That's a dangerous example for America because it shows other countries that they don't need to depend on Western guidance to rise. When India thrives on its own terms, it disrupts the old order where survival dependence and thriving meant imitation. Culturally too, thriving changes everything. A surviving nation is focused inward, fighting daily battles. A thriving nation looks outward, influencing, inspiring, and leading. India is no longer content with just managing its challenges. It is shaping global culture with its films, philosophy, traditions, and innovation. That cultural influence is just as powerful as economic growth because it changes how the world perceives India. And when the perception changes, the power dynamics change. So when America looks at India today, it does not just see a nation that made it through its struggles. It sees a nation that is rewriting what it means to succeed. Survival was never a threat. Thriving is. That's why India's rise sends a chill through America's confidence. Because thriving means India is no longer waiting for a place at the table. It is building its own table. Indian minds are leading the world. And that truth is one of the strongest reasons America feels uneasy about India's rise. For a long time, power was measured in land, weapons, and armies. But in today's world, true power is measured in innovation and ideas, and in who can solve the hardest problems of the future. And when America looks around, it sees a surprising reality. So many of the brightest innovators, CEOs, scientists, and engineers shaping the future are Indian. From Silicon Valley to Wall Street, from NASA to healthcare, Indian talent is not just present, it is leading. That leadership doesn't happen by accident. It comes from a culture that values education, discipline, and resilience. And that leadership is exactly what makes America realize India is no longer the student. It is becoming the teacher. Consider the names that dominate global industries. Sundar Pichai at Google, Satya Nadella at Microsoft, Arvind Krishna at IBM, and countless others at the helm of billion-dollar companies that define how the modern world operates. These leaders are not only guiding companies, they are shaping the very systems and technologies that America itself depends on. Artificial intelligence, cloud computing, space research, and digital transformation. These are the arenas where the future is being built, and Indian minds are the ones steering the ship. For America, this creates a unique kind of fear because influence over global companies means influence over global life. And when that influence doesn't rest solely in American hands, it feels like control is slipping. It's not just about corporate leadership either. In universities, research labs, and us indie students and entrepreneurs consistently rank among the best in the world. They are winning awards, filing patents, and building solutions that reach millions. America has long relied on attracting global talent to sustain its edge. But here's the twist. So much of that talent is Indian, and increasingly India itself is retaining its brightest minds rather than sending them abroad. That means innovation is no longer flowing just into American systems. It is flowing back into India, fueling its own rise. There's another layer to this. Indian minds don't just innovate technically, they think globally. They are comfortable navigating different cultures, different markets, and different systems. That adaptability gives them a unique advantage in a world where borders matter less and ideas matter more. This global mindset allows Indians to thrive not only in America, but anywhere they choose to go, and that creates a network of influence that America cannot contain. So when we say Indian minds are leading the world, it's not just a compliment, it's a reality that explains why America feels the pressure. Because leadership of the mind eventually translates to leadership of the future. And if India's brightest are already at the forefront today, imagine where they'll be tomorrow. Cultural influence is power. And this is something America recognizes clearly when it looks at India. Military strength can intimidate, economic growth can compete, but cultural influence is something far more subtle, far more lasting. It shapes how people think and even dream. When a nation's culture begins to spread across the globe, it creates a form of soft power that no weapon can match. And India, with its depth of tradition, spirituality, philosophy, art, and lifestyle, has become a cultural force that is impossible to ignore. This is where America feels a different kind of fear, not of tanks or missiles, but of ideas, values, and practices that are winning the hearts of millions worldwide. Look at the global impact of yoga, for example. What began as a spiritual and physical discipline in India thousands of years ago is now practiced in gyms, studios, and homes across the United States and the world. Millions wake up every day to stretch, meditate, and breathe in ways that were born in Indian culture. Ayurveda, too, is quietly reshaping the wellness industry with natural remedies, holistic healing, and plant-based approaches gaining popularity in the West. This is influence at the most personal level, people changing the way they take care of their bodies, their minds, and their health because of ideas rooted in Indian tradition. That is power that cannot be measured in dollars or weapons. Then there's cinema and music. Bollywood films, Indian music, and even regional storytelling are crossing like never before. Indian actors, directors, and artists are finding global audiences. These aren't just movies or songs. They're windows into a way of life, a way of seeing the world at different cultural export. For decades, Hollywood dominated global entertainment. Now, Indian cinema and streaming content are carving out their own space, showing the world that culture doesn't have to flow in one direction. America is used to exporting culture, not importing it. India's growing cultural reach turns that dynamic upside down. But perhaps the most powerful cultural it's in wields is in its philosophy and worldview. Concepts like karma, mindfulness, unity and diversity, and spiritual balance are penetrating Western thought. In boardrooms, classrooms, and even political discussions, these ideas are being discussed and applied. This influence isn't loud, it's quiet, but it runs deep. When people start adopting another nation's way of thinking, that nation holds power over the future direction of society. America understands this, and it unnerves them, because culture shapes generations. Culture outlasts governments, policies, and even wars. And if India's culture continues to spread and inspire globally, it means India will hold a kind of power that can't be challenged with sanctions or strategies. Cultural influence is power, and India is using it without force, without control, simply by being itself. India is becoming the first India, not the next America. And that truth captures the core of why America feels uneasy. For so long, the global narrative has been that rising nations should model themselves after the West. Development meant copying Western systems, success meant imitating American lifestyles, and power meant walking the same path America once walked. But India is tearing up that script. It is not trying to become a reflection of America, and that's exactly what makes it powerful. India is charting its own destiny, rooted in its ancient civilization, yet forward-looking in its ambitions. That independence of identity, refusing to be anyone's replica, is where true strength lies. America is comfortable with allies who unlike America. It understands them, it can predict them, and often it can control them. But India doesn't fit into that box. India is saying, "We don't want to be the next America, we want to be the first India." That mindset is unsettling because it means America can't simply measure India by its own standards. India is building its own systems, its own definitions of progress, and its own way of blending tradition with technology. Where America often views modernity as replacing the old, India views modernity as coexisting with the old. You'll see cutting-edge technology alongside centuries-old temples, space missions launched while festivals rooted in ancient rituals still unite millions. That balance creates a uniqueness America cannot replicate or control. Economically, too, India is writing its own playbook. It isn't following the exact same capitalist model America built. Instead, it's creating hybrid systems, investing heavily in digital infrastructure, promoting entrepreneurship at grassroots levels, and blending state support with free market innovation. Programs like Digital India and homegrown startups show that progress doesn't have to copy the West path. America knows this is dangerous because once a new model growth succeeds, other nations may look to India instead of America for inspiration. Culturally, India's identity is unshakable. While many nations in the pursuit of modernization, India is showing the world that progress doesn't mean erasing history. Instead, it celebrates diversity, languages, religions, and philosophies as strengths, not weaknesses. That authenticity resonates globally. It says to the world, we are not trying to be someone else. We are becoming the best version of ourselves. That message is powerful because it inspires others to embrace their own uniqueness instead of bowing to Western ideals. And this is the heart of America's fear. If India were trying to become the next America, it would still be playing on America's terms. But by becoming the first India, it is changing the game entirely. It means the future won't just the American story. It will include a bold, independent Indian story. And that is a story America cannot write, cannot own, and cannot stop.